Hi, everybody. Third try. This is welcome to this month's edition of the Nerd Enthusiast Movie Podcast. My name's Dane. I'll be one of your hosts. I'm here with Mikey D.
I'm back.
He is. We had to kick him off the island for the last episode for Halloween. But you said you watched it. Did you dig it?
I haven't watched it, so
Okay.
I have not dug it yet.
You haven't watched the movie yet, but you watched the episode I'm talking about.
I did watch the episode, yes.
Right.
And I dug the episode.
Right.
So hopefully I'll dig the movie. I don't know, though. I'm not a big Halloween person, so
I hear you.
Those movies. I love Halloween, just...
What do you mean those movies?
The franchise. What do you mean by those movies?
What do you mean by those movies? Okay. So, on a side note, our internet's definitely better. It must have been you. This month we're doing Dune. Thank God.
A little movie called Dune.
It's
a tiny little movie. Independent film called Dune.
Teeny tiny movie. It finally came out after at least a year of waiting.
Like 3 years, right?
Right.
A year delay.
We're gonna talk about the movie, what we think. But first of all, we have to get some housekeeping. Very important. If you aren't already following us on patreon.com/nerdenthusiast, check it out. There's always content going up there all the time. If you follow us on the social medias at Nerd Enthusiast on things like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, where you're probably watching this, and Instagram, and I don't know, are we on Truth? on the Truth Network? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll ask Matt about that. We'll see if we can get on Truth. That out of the way. All right, so we're talking about Dune, 2021 Dune, by Denis Villeneuve. Denis. I know you're a big fan of him.
I love Denis. For my money, he's not made a bad movie yet. For your money, I think that might be wrong. But wait, let's get this out of the way. Right. You're a Dune diehard.
Yes.
I'm like a Dune virgin. So there's different, very different viewing experiences. I think.
Have you watched the David Lynch one?
I have.
Please say yeah. Okay, yeah, because I want to refer to that one a lot.
I have, and it's not my favorite movie.
I know.
It doesn't age well, but
no.
It definitely has its following. Mm-hmm. I feel like when I talk to people about it, they're more like David Lynch fans than they are like fans of that movie. Right. It's just because it's his movie that people hold it in such high esteem because people love David Lynch. I get that.
I know.
So, wait, first question. Did you watch this in a theater or did you watch it at home?
Watched it at home.
See, we're done. No.
I know.
We're done. This guy's a filmmaker. I can't talk to him right now.
I know.
Well, then you didn't get the full experience.
No, I did. I really did.
You did not. You did not get the full experience. Did you have 7.1 surround sound on?
I had.
Was the volume cranked up to?
It was loud.
Plus 65 dB.
I had 2.1 surround sound. Okay.
I watched it at home. I watched it. It was a great experience.
Oh my God. No,
I'm serious though.
I had to really squint to see.
Honestly though, like this is definitely the kind of movie you have to see in a theater. Just because the sound design and the music, the score, all Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
It's very atmospheric in that regard. You definitely get lost in the movie because I watched it in theaters and then I watched some of it at home. And it's definitely a very different experience overall. I
watched it twice. I watched it again just to make sure I was right.
Just to make sure you hated it as much as you did.
I didn't hate it. I got to be honest. The two biggest problems, and we'll get more into it, but really the two biggest problems that I had with the movie were kind of the problems that I had with Blade Runner as well. I know you love Blade Runner.
I do. Gosh, we're gonna.
I know.
A clash on two movies today. Yeah, let's go.
Well, the problem that I had with Blade Runner was it was a lot of style over substance. And I think this was a similar problem where, like, when you look at the movie, it's incredible. The guy that shot it, and we'll talk about that, is great. He shot part of Mando. But also,
he loves sand.
And the sound, yeah, big sand fan.
He loves sand. He loves deserts.
Also,
Yeah,
like
and
you
I
said,
can see
Hans
that.
Zimmer, stuff like that. The music was great. The sound was great. I mean, it was really good in those
Yeah,
aspects. It's just
it's technically very precise movie.
some of the acting was good in it too. You know what I mean? Um, but it's just the story of it, because I know Dune really, really, really well. There were parts of it that you're like, oh man, they hit that. And then there were just parts of it where they just like, we're just going to rip this part of the book out
You know it
and
better than Denis knows it?
no, I don't. I'm sure, but it's
Because
part
apparently
of the
he's been
reason.
storyboarding this movie since he was like 13. So it's
Right.
been his lifelong dream to make this film.
Well, and I'm sure what did it was the David Lynch movie.
Yeah, I'm sure that put him over the edge. And he's like,
Well,
I gotta make this movie now.
I
Jeez.
know. The David Lynch one was not
But
that
the David
bad.
Lynch one definitely, from what I know, because I haven't read the books, it definitely deviates from the books as well.
Yeah, it does. You
It's
understand.
impossible, and it's been said, and maybe
Yeah.
you know this more than I. It's been said this book is like unfilmable. That's always been the curse around Hollywood, is that this book, the 600-page
Yeah,
Dune original Frank Herbert, is like always touted as unfilmable. Do you say that's true or not?
I would say that the obviously you can film it and that you can make it look really good, like this movie did.
Right.
The problem that you have is the books, all of the books, but specifically the first one, sets up so many wheels within wheels plots, so many
Mm,
that it would be impossible to do it unless you did like a mini series. And my
gotcha.
girl even said it before she fell asleep in the movie during the movie. After I explained everything to
10
her.
minutes in, she said
well,
it.
well, no, we were maybe about like an hour into it, and at one point, like there was the end of a scene coming up, and she's like, "This would work better as a miniseries. Like this should be the like right here should be the end of an episode." And I'm like,
Hmm,
"Yeah, that'd be a
not
good idea."
wrong.
Which
Not
they did
wrong.
make a miniseries in 2000, and it was actually not bad. It's just it was Sci-Fi Channel miniseries,
It
and
needed more budget, probably.
yeah, I mean, it had some big people, and it had John Hurt in it. It had the sequel had Meryl Streep in it. Um, and you know, you could tell like that they actually did try, but
Yes.
the problem with Dune is the parts of Dune that are really interesting are things like the ecology and the political intrigue. And you got pretty much none of that in this movie.
Yeah, you didn't get really any of that.
You got really none of it. And you got way more of it actually in the David Lynch version of the movie.
Right.
And that was kind of what killed me was you had 2.5 hours to tell the first half of the story. Because when I was watching the trailers, I knew exactly where this movie was going to end. Because I knew the story and I knew where it was going to end.
Mm.
But in this movie, you had 2.5 hours to tell half of a book. And nothing really more has been retold. Or rather,
Right.
nothing more has been told than like was even in like the David Lynch or like the miniseries told. Like it's just kind of there should have been
And,
more.
right. As someone who hasn't read the books and has a foggy memory of Lynch's movie at best because it's
Mm-hmm.
so trippy and out there,
Mm-hmm.
I watched the movie and thought two things. First, I was like, oh, it's got a beginning, middle, end, and then a beginning. It's like, it's a very clear, like, this movie could end right here. And then it's like, well, it's going to start again. And it's like, you can definitely tell
Right.
it, like, the movie restarts at one point. And you're like, okay, how much are we going to get of this? And then, like, the other
Right.
thought I had, because I did really enjoy the movie, was like, as I'm watching it and Paul Atreides is having all these dreams, and I'm like, I want to see that movie,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to see that movie. And I know I'm not because it's like, it was literally like a teaser for a part two
Mm-hmm.
throughout this whole movie. It's like if I watched episode 4 and throughout 4, I saw pieces of 5 and 6 and I'm like, I'm not going to get to watch those movies, am I? I'm going to have to pay to watch those. And I think part of the problem for Denis is that he was caught between sort of really making the movie that he wanted and making a big blockbuster film, because the whole time with Warner and HBO Max, their comments have been, we really want to make Dune, but we also want it to be like this big franchise like, Marvel has and like Disney has their franchises. So they really are hoping that Dune can be that franchise. I just don't know if this type of a series
Right.
is that type of movie that people are expecting. Because a lot of people that I talked to were expecting that big, oh, it's got to be like this big blockbuster, like
Right.
superhero movie. Because if you look at the cast, Oscar Isaac, Jason
Sure.
Momoa,
It's a
Josh
very good
Brolin,
cast.
Stellan Skarsgård, Javier Bardem, Dave Bautista. It goes on and on and on. Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah.
It goes on and on and on and on. Timothy Chalamet, of course. So like you're seeing Zendaya. You're seeing these names and you're going, look at these stars. They're superheroes. They're Star Wars characters. You're seeing all of these people and you're expecting not really a quiet film, not really a film that really only has two big action pieces in it. And then, there's really not a lot of action in this movie, which doesn't bother me, but I could see why people were like, I'm so bored with this movie because it's marketed as this, balls to the wall action adventure, skirmish in the desert type thing. And it's really not.
Realistically, there's really only 3 action sequences.
Right.
You have the sandworm, you have the battle where they're just running across the desert at each other while everything's blowing up in Arrakeen. And the end of it where there's a fight. And that's what I mean is like that whole first half is, in a sense, in a normal movie, you would do the whole book.
Right.
There's a bunch left. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot more.
Is it half the book that's done?
I don't know if it's
less.
It's about half the story. I don't know if it's like page wise where it is, but it's like it's about half the story, and it's a sensible place to break the movie into 2.
Right.
It's just.
It's only the beginning.
It's only the beginning.
And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's the end of the movie.
That's what I mean is, and
the movie teases you too because it's right away at like part 1, and you're like, ah,
right.
And I think a film like this will live and die by its part 2 because I think we could have the same conversation, 3 years from now when part 2 comes out and say, oh, does this work as a 5-hour thing? Right. Does it satisfy you at 5 hours?
Yeah.
And
does you might say, pay itself off?
Otherwise, right. You might say, what? This movie works now because if you watch it like Lord of the Rings with a 6-hour, 1 6-hour piece or 9-hour piece in Lord of the Rings case, you may be satisfied. Or you may say, they dropped the ball and just it doesn't work. It's just not good enough because the film always needs more.
It's a lot like it's going to be a lot like Game of Thrones, where that last season it taints really badly, really badly the experience of all of it before. Absolutely. Because you get so invested and
it drops the ball on some of the most important plot lines. Yeah,
so much of it doesn't pay off.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what this movie sets up so much because the more interesting parts of the book from the Paul Atreides aspect of it happen at the end.
Right. And I was getting that. Yeah, I was totally getting that from Vibe.
After he meets the Fremen, they take him in. He has a baby with Chani, who, by the way, is Liet Kynes, who's supposed to be a man, but that's okay. Daughter. They have a son.
Spoilers,
Rebecca,
by the way.
Yeah, well, okay, fine.
If you haven't read the books.
Exactly, right. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm ruining the next movie for you. I guess,
no, I've been spoiled on most of it, right? Because I've watched a couple of reviews, and people don't, because the books have been out since about 60. The book's been out since 65
years old.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like you could say spoilers, but at the same time, like, it's like
going off on a tangent. I remember years ago when I worked at Best Buy. You remember when?
I remember that place.
Yeah, you remember when? Right after Lord of the Rings came out, King Kong came out. Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I was in the break room and I was talking to somebody about it. And they were saying, I hadn't seen the movie. I hadn't seen the new movie. But everybody knows what happens at the end of King Kong. So I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, I really, the big thing, you want to see what happens at the end of the movie when Kong dies. And someone's like, thanks, Dane, for spoiling the movie for me. I'm like, 100-year-old movie.
This movie's been around since like film has been around.
That's what I mean. The movie is 100 years old.
This movie's been shot 8 times already. If you haven't caught it in the last 100 years, then you may never catch it. Yeah, it's true. So there's really no, and I know there's some big twists in the series
there's some
I didn't see coming, especially with Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Atreides, Lady Jessica. Her whole lineage is like a huge plot point that's not even like. But it's not even like teased at all in this film, which is like there's no hint of it in this film. That's going to be an interesting reveal. I don't know if it's going to work though, because it's just going to be, it's going to be out of left field, or is it going to be?
Well, and that's why
I'm going to have an issue. Like, how the hell is that going to be revealed properly?
And that's what really upsets me about the way that the problem that I have with the movie mostly is the writing of the movie, because you are stretching out the book into basically 5 hours worth of movie. Okay.
Right.
That's fine. I'll watch 5 hours of Dune. I will be the guy that watches 5 hours of Dune. The only problem is like, there's no Fade in the movie, who is the nephew of the Baron.
Right.
He is the foil of Paul, because they're basically the same age.
Gotcha.
And they are also both results of the breeding program of Bene Gesserit.
He's a pretty big character then.
What's that? Yes.
He's a pretty important character then.
Very much so. And you don't see him. Now, I'm sure they'll kind of have to bring him into the next one, because he's a really integral part, played by...
And that was Sting, right?
Played by Sting, yes. I got to tell you, watch the movie right now. He's good. He's good in the movie.
It's Sting. You got to have Sting.
That's right. You got to have Sting.
We need a new Sting.
Yeah, I don't know who it's going to be, but just have it be fucking Timothy Chalamet. It'd be fine. Just...
He's got a sister, I think.
Right. Oh, yeah, we'll make Fade. Well, it wouldn't work with... Okay, so now here's another thing too, and I remember reading about before the movie came out, I was a little bit worried. We're getting way off tangent here. We're just talking about the movie.
No, it's fine.
Before the movie came out, they were talking about the Baron and how they're going to do the Baron. The Baron is really interesting as a character, because in the first book, spoiler, at the end of the first book, he dies. Okay, good guy, bad guy. He's the bad guy. Okay. At the end of the book, though, you don't realize actually the good guys become the bad guys. But basically, the Baron, the reason why he's so fat, and it's not explained in any of the books until you get to the prequels, specifically the first prequel book written by the son. It's called House Harkonnen or Harkonnen. But so with the Baron.
Yes, the Baron, fit and trim. He was a specimen.
Fit and trim. He's a specimen. He's also homosexual.
What the hell happens to him?
Well, he's homosexual.
That is not explored like at all.
No, it's not. And they were talking about leaving that aspect out. But there is a reason why he has to be homosexual. In the beginning, in the prequel, when he's a trim man, the Bene Gesserits want to use him to breed another daughter. Because that's what they do. Basically, the Bene Gesserits, for, say, 50 generations, for math's sake, they are breeding women straight down through members of the Landsraad in order to create the supreme being, the Kwisatz Haderach. Okay. The idea was...
You mean the Jedi, you mean?
The Jedi, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
sorry.
Witches.
I had to say it as an ignorant Dune fan.
The Jedi witches.
The Jedi witches, yes.
So... they basically trick him into impregnating one of the Bene Gesserits. That daughter is no good, so they abort that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucked up. They abort that.
That's interesting.
And then they go back to get his goop again, and then he wants no part of it. So
right, obviously,
he then rapes the Bene Gesserit, but in retaliation, not only does she get pregnant and have a daughter who is Jessica, she actually inflicts him with an incurable disease that makes him fat, because he's a vain and self-important person.
That's a really important plot line.
Yes, it is. It's really good. Now, to be fair,
it feeds
not
into
explained at all in Dune.
Right.
In the first book.
That makes sense, but it also supports his character a lot and gives him it makes him far more interesting of a character than, it's like Jabba the Hutt and slime and oil. Because I giggled a little bit when I saw him, because I was like, what is this? He's just like rising up, and then he's like having that Lord of the Rings stuffing his face.
That I hated. That I hated.
The sound design.
What I hated about that was it gave the impression that that's why he's obese.
Right. Yes.
And it's not.
No.
I'm sure he eats. But the idea that's not why, it's because
he just seemed like some glutton who was like, oh, this guy's just some glutton asshole who has no real motivation other than I want more power. Right. But the way you're explaining it is like, oh, there's actually a really interesting character behind there. It's just not explored. Hopefully, Part 2
True.
goes into it.
Now, the other
don't know.
interesting part about his character is the fact that because he's homosexual, there's a very interesting piece of motivation that he has later on in the book. The beast Raban, who's Drax, and
Dave Bautista.
And whoever Sting is going to be, Fade Ralpha, his brother.
Right.
They decide to, instead of just waiting for him to die or waiting for him to pass down the throne to Fade, because Fade is going to be his heir.
Gotcha.
They try to overthrow him. They suck at it. They fail at the assassination attempt and the overthrowing. So rather than kill them, he punishes them. I forget what he does to Raban, but to Fade is like when he was younger, handsome as can be, and he has concubines and a harem.
Right.
So he, instead of, as punishment for a bad assassination attempt, the Baron forces Fade to kill his harem himself.
Oh, wow.
And
that's interesting.
The sadistic part of that is not just that he did that, but it's the fact that he can just do that because he's homosexual, and there's no sense of these are women and morality. He's just those, I don't like those, so I'm gonna punish you because I know you like them. And so like that's what I mean. The Baron is such an interesting character.
Yeah, and
he turned him into a fucking blob.
He's Jabba the Hutt.
Right. Turned him into right. As it made him as interesting as
the only
Jabba
cool thing is his spine, when it, like the robotic spine that he has.
That was cool.
Has to activate. Cool. It's creepy because it's just lights up in the dark, and then he's.
And I guess if you don't know what that is, the first time you see it, that's kind of strange, because I don't think he levitates the first time you see him.
No, I don't think. No, he doesn't.
Because he just goes up,
floating through the hallways.
Mm-hmm.
Then that dinner scene with Oscar Isaac's ball. Oscar Isaac just spread eagle, and he hovers over to him.
I know.
It's such a funny sequence. It's just like, why?
I know. But that's the other thing.
Like ultimate form of humiliation.
His like the other character in that room, Peter de Vries, he's a Mentat, which they barely went into Mentat.
No, I
in the movie at all, which is a
shame because
that's actually a big part. All right,
what's a Mentat?
A Mentat.
Educate me.
A Mentat is a human supercomputer, basically. It's a person who is trained from birth to be able to do massive, quick calculations in their head. That's why Thufir Hawat, in the beginning of the movie, he asks him, how much is this going to cost? And
I was going to say he's a computer too, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
he's not a computer. Human computer.
They're not computers.
They're just Mentats.
They are Mentats. That's
a lot to keep up with. I got to read up on Dune.
That's why in the Fallout universe, the Mentats.
Yes, I was just going to mention that too. I was
there
like,
it is.
That makes so much sense.
Yes, it does.
Increases your
your intelligence.
Yes, intelligence.
And your focus and your voice. The voice was really cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah. So, as a fan of Dune, the book, what would you have done differently for this film? How would you have maybe fixed the film for your,
fixed? Well, the problem.
How would you have liked to see the film?
I would have liked to see the movie go more into the ecological and political aspect of it, because as much fun as Warring Houses is, God, we know that,
as a la Game of Thrones in space.
Game of Thrones. It was also very, like, Littlefinger is a really fun character to watch. And there are Littlefinger-esque characters in Dune, because the wheels within wheels of it all, between the Padishah Emperor, I don't know if you see much in the beginning of the Dune.
I said, do you see them?
Not in this.
You don't see them in this movie, right?
Not in this movie at all. The Padishah Emperor, Shaddam IV, the Emperor, the idea is he wants to get rid of the whole political reason why the Atreides become in charge of Dune, the most important planet, is because Duke Leto Atreides is getting popular in the Landsraad, which is the conglomerate of family houses. Okay.
Gotcha.
So he's getting very popular.
And that isn't even really touched on in the movie either, which is confusing, because it's like they're they're rising. That's all they said. Their house is rising, which didn't make any sense because it was like they seem like they're just in the middle of nowhere,
right,
on a lush planet. Why do you want to exterminate them?
It's
I was confused by that because I didn't understand that.
The reason why they're rising is because
right.
Leto's getting more popular, because if you have House Harkonnen, who's a very powerful house, everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows they're terrible people, but the Atreides do it with love.
Mm.
And also the guys like Gurney Halleck, Josh Brolin,
right.
and Duncan Idaho. Duncan Idaho is a sword master of Ganaz. He's one of the most skilled warriors in the universe.
Gets blown away. 30
so
minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I guess he's gone. But we get to see Gurney again.
Yeah, if he comes back later in the books as a
mercenary or whatever.
No, Gurney does. Yes, Gurney does. Gurney will be in the next one because he runs.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
You see him later. It's
and
in the
blames Jessica for the.
Well, see, that was the other thing too, and that's part of the intrigue that they didn't do, which was in the beginning. Thufir Hawat is he's the Mentat, and actually, Paul is training to be a Mentat. That's why he's supposed to be so intelligent. So the idea, and it's why Paul is such an interesting character, is he has all these guys between he has a sword master of Ganaz who will teach him how to fight better than anybody. Right. He has Gurney Halleck, who's a master tactician. He has Thufir Hawat, who's a Mentat, and he's training to be a Mentat, so he's getting everything. But he's also supposed to be, I think, 15 or 16 in the movie. So it's a coming of age thing. But Thufir Hawat, that's part of why the Dr. Yui, the Asian guy with the thing on his head.
Yes.
That's the Hippocratic Oath, basically. I forget what it's called. It's
gotcha.
Imperial conditioning. That's what it is. It's basically it's a do no harm. That's why when he was shooting the guards and stuff like that to get to the Duke, he was stunning them. He wasn't killing them. He was.
Gotcha. Okay.
They were still breathing and stuff.
Gotcha.
That. Yeah. He's not supposed to be able to kill anybody.
The whole shield thing was very confusing to me.
Yes. Yeah, the shield thing.
It was so confusing to me.
That's the other thing that killed me.
Slow blade. Yeah, I was like, what? But then they're like attacking each other at normal speed. But
right.
Then I was like, how are you killing them then? I don't get this.
It's not very well represented in the movie.
No, it doesn't make any sense in the movie.
Okay, here's how the shield work. And here's
just
why.
A Dune lesson.
Pretty much. But here's why the shields are actually very, very, very important. For the same reason why there's no computers. All right. The reason why there's no computers in the Dune universe is because however many years there was an uprising of AI, and basically humanity realized that AI couldn't be trusted, so anything with a computer was outlawed. Shields, personal shields, and shields on ships and stuff like that basically negates the ability to use things like firearms. That's why there's really no firearms because the bullets.
That makes sense then. Yeah, that makes sense then.
That's why you have to use blades. Here's the other thing, and this is what pissed me off. There's something in the and I'm telling you, I love Dune.
No, it's great. I just love hearing your Dune passion.
In the Dune of it all, there's something called a lasgun, Lasgun. It's basically a laser gun. Okay, it's a laser gun. Shoots a continuous beam. You saw them in the movie. But here's the problem with those. The reason why they don't use them is because in the world of Dune, if you take one of those guns and you hit a shield with it, it creates an atomic explosion.
Oh, wow.
So that's why you can't really use them.
That makes sense. Okay.
That's why when they were shooting and trying to get Duncan and his thing had a shield on it, I'm like, that shouldn't end well. Because it would literally create an atomic explosion.
That makes sense.
And that's why also when they were dropping those things that would go slow and then go through the shields and then blow up the things, it's why, but then you look at it and you go, okay, or why use that instead of literally an orbital laser gun? That would make more sense. It's because if a laser gun hits a shield,
that makes so much more sense now. Because I was told that, like somebody had said to me too, they're like, why aren't they just using that laser thing that just cuts through everything? And I was like, yeah, why does no one have that?
And that's also what pissed me off, right?
I was like, why are we all using old swords then? When we could just laser through everyone.
It's a very good piece of writing for the book to create the world because it creates limitations. Okay.
Yes.
If you can't have a computer, then the individuals become so much more important.
Yes.
Things like mentats, and that's why I like Peter de Vries, the bald guy that was hanging out with the Baron.
Right.
He's his mentat. Okay. So he's a very important person. He does calculations. He remembers everything that's said verbatim, stuff like that. So he's important to those.
It's your boy from Suicide Squad.
Which one?
David Damascene? Polka Dot Man?
Oh, is that who that was? I thought
same
he looked
actor.
familiar. I thought
Same
he looked
actor.
familiar.
Polka Dot Boy?
And Polka Dot Guy, yeah.
Now I've made the movie worse
Mommy,
for you.
yeah, I know, sure.
You're like, no, I really hate
mommy,
this movie.
mommy issues.
Yes, mommy issues. Mentat, very important, but completely skipped.
Completely skipped.
I didn't even catch like the that he was like the human computer type either. I caught that from Duke Leto's assistant, basically.
Right,
but I didn't catch that.
And if anything, if you look at it, you think maybe he is a computer. But he's not. They're just people.
I just thought it was Robot Man.
Right. Yeah, and that's
because there's not a lot of distinction for that stuff. Because like even with the Baron, I was like, oh, he must be some kind of cybernetic thing.
Right.
Because he's got this thing on his spine. Like it was all, none of it was really well.
That's why
explained. It was just sort of like.
If you watch the David Lynch version right now,
it makes a lot more sense with the book. Yeah.
Better story.
Okay.
I think you'll get
you're getting the more complete story too, right? Because it does cover the whole book.
Exactly. I mean, it literally tells you mentat, human supercomputers thinking this, that, the other. You know, I mean, it kind of in voiceover and in voiceover. Literally explaining thoughts like a book.
So let me ask you this: Timothy Chalamet or Kyle MacLachlan? Who did it better? First of all, though, let's be honest. Kyle doesn't pull off 15 or 16.
No.
Okay.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't.
At least Timmy has that going for him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. I mean, I think they're right around the same age too at the time because Kyle MacLachlan was.
Yeah, he was very young, but he looks 30 in the original too. He's just like a bigger guy overall, though. Too.
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet looks like he's 90 pounds, so that helps.
True. Yeah, I mean, again, it's.
What's your opinion of him as Paul Atreides?
It's good. You know what I mean? I think, unfortunately, I don't think that they gave him enough. You know what I mean? You know, they gave him the interesting struggle, but the interesting parts of the Paul character are his dreams.
I was gonna say we never get to see him.
Like
we don't get to see him really do cool stuff. Only
you do a
the
couple
visions.
Things, I mean, when he's in
the sword fight is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the sword fight's cool. The only problem is they took the dialogue from the book, and if you watch the David Lynch version, they use a lot of similar dialogue, and it doesn't land well. You know what I mean? The dialogue in that doesn't really work. Even though you kind of have to be somewhat faithful because it's what happens. It's what's said in the book.
Right.
Yeah. Oh God, the movie could have been so much better. What did you like? I mean, you liked it, you said.
For somebody who doesn't know, like I'm like a Dune virgin because I knew the book existed. I never read it. I have vague memory of the David Lynch version. So I basically went into this movie very blind. And as a Denis fan, I was like, oh, I'm going to eat this up because I love Arrival. I love Prisoner. I love Blade Runner. I was like, it's going to be easy sell for me because I love all his work. And you're right. It is a lot of style. And even the comparison's been made. It's like this film is such an interesting blending of like indie art house with like giant blockbuster movie because there's so many like very contemplative, slow moments in this movie, which I don't mind. But I could see as a fan.
I think the whole movie was like that.
Right, but as a fan
they just tell me all the extra good shit that's really interesting.
Exactly, as you knowing the story, so well, yeah, it's going to bother you. Me not knowing what to think, I'm just like, oh, I'm just along for the ride. You know what I mean? But now knowing all these other parts, I'm like, oh, well, that's going to be a problem. Well, they're going to have a lot of ground to cover if they're going to make all of this movie work. And though I kind of feel like they're going to be throwing a couple things away, or maybe a lot of things away, because there's just not going to be enough time to make up all the ground that they have to make up, especially if is Denis even considering the prequels with these? I don't know. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like he's really considering, because what you're telling me, it seems like he's kind of ignoring a lot of that material.
Well, some of it, again,
does any of it,
the prequel stuff,
resonate?
The prequel stuff, all of the prequel stuff was written by Brian Herbert and Brian something Anderson.
And this movie doesn't reference any of it, though, does it?
Doesn't reference it because those books came out 30 years later.
Right, but wouldn't you just with the idea then be to like, oh, maybe we could grab something from
there's a little bit
and incorporate
the bull
okay
thing. That's a Seleucid or Seleucid bull. It's how Leto became Duke is when he was a kid. His father was killed by a bull that was tampered with. Forget what happened. I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically his father liked to bull fight, and they injected this monster bull with more monster juice. And
nuclear bull.
Yeah, basically.
The Fallout bull. It was a mutant bull.
Basically, and that's what it was, So just little things like that.
Yeah, and that's we see the bull a lot. We see the shot a lot,
right?
But we don't really know what it's for. But yeah, as somebody who is very ignorant to the series, I enjoyed it a lot because again, the cinematography is outstanding. Yeah. The characters are fascinating to me. Zendaya is completely underused and useless in this movie. They might as well have just slapped her name on it. I mean, I made the joke of like every shot of her looks like either a makeup commercial or just like some kind of perfume commercial because it's just like her turning on the beach, her turning around on the beach, her sandals on the beach, her dress flowing on the beach. I was like, this woman,
in her nose.
Yeah, this girl must have made $5 million to spend 2 days in the desert. I mean, think about it. She's got what? All of 10 lines in the movie. She does the opening voiceover right after the dream line. But after that, it's like, literally see her for 10 minutes in this movie. And it's just marketing. I get it. But yeah, at the same time, I just kept wanting to see the next, what's to come. Like you're saying, like the best stuff of Paul. And we're just seeing
best stuff is what's to come.
We're just seeing like him kind of be Luke Skywalker, whiny, and I don't want to do this. Why are you making me crazy? And
right.
It's
I want to go to the
academy. Crazy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I will say that I talked about to this a little bit before we started. Like watching this film and then reading about Dune, I was like, wow, George Lucas stole a lot of shit from Dune, like a lot, like, to the point that I was like, it had me scratching my head. That I was like, damn, I thought Star Wars was much more original than it was. It is not, in fact, as nearly as original, because it literally like turned my world upside down a bit because I really thought that I had no idea that, and I'm surprised more comparisons really haven't been made about how much Star Wars borrows from Dune, in so many ways.
I mean, it has been said a bunch, and I think part of the problem with the David Lynch version of the movie is it's tough because that movie came out in '84. Which was a year after Return of the Jedi. So when you basically have all of these ideas of space witches and houses and emperors and, this good versus evil and the big bad guy with his finger over everything, it's tough because you've seen it 3 times in 3 of the biggest movies in history. Yeah. And then you have to throw special effects onto it. And like you said, like, there's some good special effects in Dune, the '84 version, but it can't hold up. There's so much of I don't know if it was blue screen. It was just just stuff like that.
It doesn't age very well.
No,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't have it didn't have ILM behind it. Probably.
Actually, I think it might have been. I think it might have had some ILM behind it. Actually.
Which I mean, it's funny really because
it was a Dino De Laurentiis thing. I think he really did try.
It's funny because that original film had, I think it was like a $40 million budget.
Right.
And it only made like 30 million, which isn't really not terrible. You know, they said the movie was a failure at the time, but really was not, you know, by that amount of money, it really wasn't a huge flop. It's not like it made 2 million. Whereas this is a $160 million movie and it's already sort of cleared that hurdle. So yeah, I just think they're looking to cash this out as a franchise at this point. So whether that bastardizes your dream for this series or not, I don't know. I kind of feel like it will because especially if the second part does well, I think you're going to get 7 more of these plus. You know, it's just going to be.
Well, but here's the point. Like
it's just going to get churned out into.
They get tough because.
Have you read all the books?
I haven't read them all. I think I've read the second one, Children of Dune, Messiah of Dune. There's multiple ones.
And are they all like, you know, like encyclopedia size books?
They're pretty big. Yeah, I mean the books aren't that big. I mean but they are, you know, it would be like reading a Lord of the Rings book. You know what I mean? They're big like that sense. You know what I mean? And they're not particularly difficult to read. Actually, it's not like people talk about
Game of Thrones.
George R.R. Martin. You know what I mean? It's not that. Yeah, it's not like they, you know, obviously they have their own language and their own dialogue and stuff like that. And there are words that they use like mentat. What's a mentat? But it's not those that doesn't exist. It's not like Lord of the Rings. It's more like Lord of the Rings, where you can read Lord of the Rings, and even though there's weird names and everything, you can follow it. You know, all you got to do is just learn the names of the people.
So you think overall this would be better served as a series, not a series of movies?
Yeah, I think that especially this. I think that you should get a good 6-hour series out of this. Something that again, because there's a lot of characters. Believe it or not, there's way more characters that you could put way more time into the characters that you had. You know what I mean? If you didn't have to have these big vistas, which again, it does look good, but I don't know. It's a lot of style over substance.
Jordan looks so pretty.
I know.
Well, it's like the same area Lawrence of Arabia was shot, and it's like, you've never seen a movie quite. I mean, we've seen enough desert stuff, but you've not seen a movie quite like this. And I just love the scope of it, the scale. You know, the scale is done so well. The worm stuff, again, you couldn't do that. You know, in '84, you weren't doing something as intricate as the worm like they did in this film. How everything just felt so tangible. You know what I mean? Like, and Christopher Nolan has this quote about the film that's the best merging of practical and CG he's ever seen, which I would tend to agree with that because there is CG in this movie, but it's very well hidden. You know what I mean? And as it should be, like you said earlier, another review. The CG really shouldn't matter now because we have that technology and there's no amount of money you can't throw at it to make it good. So it's like CG should be irrelevant, but you're right. The story and the characters, the series will live and die by the story and the characters. And
and I think that's why people say it's unfilmable, because it's in the desert, which obviously, I mean, you know, at the time, obviously when the book came out in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, when they really did try to make it, if it's unfilmable, it's unfilmable in the sense that like Lord of the Rings would have been unfilmable. Okay. Now you can film anything, but again, it's the fact that the story is so dense and it's very well written, and there are so many interesting things that they just completely ignored in order to make a style over substance movie with this. And I was a little bit worried about that because I did not really dig Blade Runner. Blade Runner kind of, to me, has this same problem where it's, I mean, yeah, there's a plot to Blade Runner, but like, you know, you're just waiting for that next big vista, that next big thing. You're waiting for him to get to, what was it, Vegas? This way, you know, you see all the...
This way you can see Harrison Ford
run and his old man run. He's going to be 82 when the new...
so...
What's the name?
Keep it going, and then we'll get Blade Runner 3. If Dune does well, then we'll get Blade Runner 3, and then Harrison will be 100. You know? And then we'll find out he's actually a replicant, so he doesn't matter how old he is. He's just like a really old replicant. Yeah. I mean, yes, Blade Runner 2049 is so much style, but, oh, it's so pretty, though. It's so pretty. And I just, you know what I love about 2049 is that it takes the typical hero concept and it just gives it a big middle finger. That's what I think I love about the film, because Kay is sort of built up as the one, so to speak. And then when he finds out that like he's not really that important, he's just a tool for other people. I really love that concept. And I know a lot of people hated that, but I love that at the end of it all, Ryan Gosling's character really was not, he wasn't anyone that important. And I think so many movies do that, Star Wars included, and Dune included. You build up these characters as the one. Every video game does this. You know, we've played this, we've watched this, we've played this scenario. That's what was really refreshing to me with that film, was that it was a different take on, yeah, he's still the hero, but it's, you know, he's not anybody's son. He's not somebody so special. He's not, you know, the chosen one all along. He's just a guy who thought he was special, and he's not, but he still carries on. You know what I mean? That's what I think I really loved about the film. But Blade Runner is like, the original is even still, you know, people love that movie or people hate that movie. It was, you know, it was still a cult film at the time because it was such a different film. Yeah. So well, these films are tough. These films are tough.
A cool world.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And Dune is very similar. Dune has some incredible world building. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. Just, you know, seeing the different houses and the locations are just stunning. You know, seeing the different houses where they reside is like eye candy for me. You know what I mean? But maybe I'm just easily fooled by the the slick cinematography.
That's why I'm saying. And if you go back and you watch the David Lynch version, you're gonna the little pieces that get filled in. Yeah. You're gonna like.
I'm gonna go, oh shit.
You know what I mean? You're gonna go.
Could have used that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, could have used that.
I mean? Right. Exactly.
Can we also talk about some of the naming in this film? Because as someone who hasn't read the books, I could not but chuckle when I heard the name Duncan, Idaho.
I know.
Fuck. Like some of it's fine, like, you know, Gurney, whatever. Some of it maybe smile, Gurney. I am smiling. You know, some of the stuff is like, just makes me chuckle. But when I heard Duncan, Idaho, and I was so worried too when I saw Jason Momoa was in this. I was like, oh man, is it just going to be Aquaman but in the desert?
No, it's not.
And
Aquaman.
I swear
it's the guy. It's Baba Voss from C.
Instead of saying saying my man, he says my boy. You know, because he says my man and Aquaman the whole time. Yeah, hell yeah, my man, my boy. So I was like, Duncan, Idaho. Of all the names, like we can come up with, I get it. He's probably from Idaho. His family's probably from Idaho. I don't know, but it's just I know
he's the heir to the Duncan Yo-Yo.
Well, and he's just, as you're saying, he's like the greatest swordsman who ever lived, and it's like he's Duncan, Idaho. He's not Luke Skywalker. He's Duncan, Idaho. It's like, wow, what a poor bastard. Like, he didn't even get a cool name. Although I was reading Frank Herbert, bless his heart, when he wrote these, he was like, love to do shrooms. So it makes a lot of sense now. Yeah.
Well, he was a big fan. Hippie's probably the better word, but like it
makes a lot of sense now.
Like a part of in the book, and the reason why ecology is such a big part, and the reason why like they really fucked up Leah Kynes' character, not by making him a woman. I'm not saying that, even though that didn't really do it. That didn't do anything. Making that character a woman didn't do anything.
It was probably irrelevant that regard.
It was irrelevant as to whether or not it's a man or woman. It's the fact that like Leah Kynes is a emperor. She works for the emperor. He works for the emperor. Right. He was sent to Arrakis in order to study the agriculture, because it's the most important planet on in the universe to study the agriculture. Everyone thinks it's just dirt.
They need that spice.
There's a big ecological thing involved with it. That's why the way that Kynes dies in the book is so much more interesting. And the way that she dies.
How does she die in the book? How does she die in the book?
He, she.
How do they? Yeah. How do they?
How do they? Ah, damn it. They are captured.
Okay.
By the Harkonnens when they take over. And he sends and he gets sent out to die in the desert. So basically, I think they pull off his still suit and they drop him in the middle of a desert, and they drop him on what's called a spice blow, kind of what it sounds like, which is basically a spot that they know is going to explode, and then it sprays out a bunch of spice. It's violent. It's basically like a small volcano.
That's one way to go.
So, and what it is that he's injured because they beat him up or whatever, and so he's out there. And I don't remember if like there were birds out there, but he's just kind of having this moment. He's having these inner thoughts of things like, you know, of just the ecology and the beauty of where he is, and the wonderfulness of the desert and what it can become. And his last thoughts are about the ecology of Arrakis, and then he explodes because he's on a spice blow. Just it's sort of like
interesting.
The thing that he studied and dedicated his life to, which is the ecology of the planet, kills him, as opposed to
just getting taken out by
a worm comes and eats him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's
using
and,
the ground pounder to summon the worm to kill others, to give them more time.
Right. And it's like, I guess it's probably one of those things where it's like the studio's like, someone's got to get eaten by a worm.
We need to see someone. I want to see worm riding and worm eating.
Right. Well, they do ride worms, but
the riding comes in play later, I'm sure.
Yeah, it does. Well, that's how the Fremen get around.
Yeah.
They ride the worms.
I remember watching the film and going, so wait, the Duke, or not the Duke, the Baron is willing to let, you know, Jessica and Paul die in the desert, but then they send people after him anyway. Like, it's like 20 minutes is like, the desert will get them. And then like, he's like, make sure they're dead. And then they send them more. I'm like, why didn't you just kill them outright then?
Right.
If you were just going to send people out anyway, like there's like a huge plot hole there, and that it just needs to move the story forward, because it's like, now they need to be pursued.
Right.
Because if not,
they basically have to get them into the desert so they
Exactly. So then it's like, well, they need to be pursued now. But it was like, wouldn't you just kill them? I mean, it is a cool scene when they're on the flying, moth, and they start.
It's called an ornithopter. That's what it's called.
Ornithopter, which there's plenty of that footage in the film, which I think is funny. There, Denny didn't waste any footage of taking off, land. Like we get
you see
like the
from
wind
beginning to end, baby.
I was like, wow, we really needed all that. But yeah, that's a cool sequence with using the voice in that sequence. But then it's like, why doesn't she just do that all the time? Why does she wait until she's bound and gagged to start doing that? And then it's like, it's such a like unnecessarily like tense scene. Just like bite the guy's finger to get talking again, and the one's deaf, and it's like
Well, that's in the book. One of the guys.
Oh, it is in the book.
One of the guys is deaf. That's
that adds extra tension.
Yeah. That's how they're able to kind of.
It's a cool sequence. I mean, it is a very.
It's
cool
interesting.
sequence.
Yeah, it's in the David Lynch version too. It's funny though. The ornithopters aren't in the David Lynch version. There's no flapping because they can't do that shit. It's literally just a little diamond.
That costs $3 million to fly.
It's so cheesy. It's just a little diamond that you can't figure out how it's flying in the David Lynch version.
But when you saw it as a kid, you were probably like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!"
Well, so
the flying diamond.
This is how deep.
When you were a kid, how old were you when you saw the original Dune?
Well, the movie came out in '84, so I was probably.
You were one.
I was probably
out,
about
right?
I was probably about 6 or 7 because there were games. So for the Amiga, there was a game called Dune. Now you're thinking of Dune 2.
No,
which was the first top-down.
I remember these now. Okay, yes,
there was
terrible
another
looking.
game. Well, they are now. I played a lot of that, but there was basically no Dune story involving that. There was just 3 houses: Harkonnen, Atreides, and Ordos.
So you were really deep in this.
Well,
you're fully invested.
The other game was called Dune, and it was made by a company called Cryo. And it was a combination of first-person adventure and strategy game. So basically, you start out in the palace, and then you see because you play Paul. And then what's funny is that when you go and you look at the mirror, because there's a mirror in it, you look at it, and it's Kyle MacLachlan.
Of course it is.
It's
just
like
a
a
computer
16-bit
It's
rendering
just the low quality version.
of Kyle MacLachlan, and you see him, and he's basically doing this.
I hope Matt can find this image.
I hope so. I hope so. It's
we
out
can
there.
find this game.
It's
and show
definitely
us.
on there. It's definitely
run
on
the
YouTube
B-roll
'cause
on
I've
this
watched
game,
it.
please. Run the B-roll because I want to see.
As you play the game, as you do certain things, your eyes become more and more blue because you meet more of the Fremen. And
I want to see 6-year-old Dane playing this game, like just the greatest game ever.
It was great, but you basically walk out and there's an ornithopter, and then if you're stupid in the very beginning and you fly right towards the Harkonnen base, they shoot you down, you die. So you then have to go and you have to recruit the Fremen.
You got to level up.
You have to level up. You actually do level up because at some point you have to take the water of life, which gives you the ability to talk because there's a map.
You almost die, but you come back.
Correct. Absolutely. You literally walk out into the desert. It's a really good game, actually. Now that I think about it, it's a really good game.
We're gonna roll footage on this. It's gonna look like
so.
It's gonna look just terrible.
This episode's gonna go really long. He's gonna get tired of this shit.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, we're covering video games now.
Exactly.
It's all merging now.
It all goes into it.
What more could you ask for, Matt?
We tried that with Ready Player One. But
so okay. Part 2. Part 2 is coming. It was just announced like 3 days ago, so it's coming. And it's going to be in theaters only, so you won't be able to just enjoy it from the comfort of your couch.
It's true.
You're going to have to get out there. I bet, though, if you go and see this movie in a theater, you're going to enjoy it a little bit more, if nothing else other than the sound design and the score.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true. It's more visceral.
Because I can definitely see a disconnect for me. I mean, there's so many distractions for me at home anyway, so I'm glad that I did get to see it in theaters, but yeah.
Well, that was something that I noticed with her because at one point she paused it like in the first couple of minutes she goes, "Boy, you're gonna have to explain this." I'm like, all right, Benny Gesserit tried to explain the whole. But again, like I was kind of hoping like they would explain it.
Yeah, there's not.
And I
couldn't even follow all the namings because like there was a lot of I will say that there, and I wish that's the one nice thing about home viewing experience. There's a lot of parts in the theater where like characters come in and whisper something, like come in and lean and whisper something. I'm like, wait, what? And then it's just bam, something loud happens, and you're like, there was a line that and it happened a lot where I was like, I don't know, I just missed that whole section because there's so much. There's the underscore, there's something happening, and somebody's whispering, and it's gone. And I'm sure seeing it at home with the subtitles on would remedy that because I was like, I don't know what just happened or what they were whispering or what Jessica was crying about or whatever. She cried a lot of crying.
And there were interesting things that I'm really surprised that they did. Like there's a line where Leto and Gurney are talking about something and he says something, he's like, what do they say about Arrakis? And it's something like where you have to brush your ass
with sand.
Now here's the thing about that.
Is that a line in the book or no?
That is a line in the book, but I think, and this is me really going back, I think at some point early in the book when the Atreides first get to Arrakis, it's either maybe Jessica is walking throughout the palace or Paul's walking throughout the palace, but I think he hears two guards talking. And one of the guards basically says something about showering. And he's like, no, you have to scrub your ass with sand or something like that. So I think that they lifted that and then they gave it to Gurney and Leto in order to kind of create a bond. You know what I mean? Because otherwise they're not very necessarily friendly to each other. There's no kind of ribbing that they do. There isn't anything funny about this movie.
That one line, mate. That's the one line I remember. The smile, Gurney. I am smiling. Right. Thanos, I am smiling.
Right, I know. It's basically Thanos.
Well, I will say one of the things I did like about the movie a lot is that not knowing the story, it did feel like there was always a sense of impending danger. Like you could feel that from just from the tone of the film, which I really liked. And at any point I was like, oh, Paul should just die because he weighs 70 pounds and there's no reason he should be alive in this world because like he looks so frail and like helpless.
Right.
Like that's just like Timothy Chalamet just plays this character of like he just seems very helpless through most of the movie. Like people are taking, and that's like sort of the theme, I guess, because by the end he's taking care of himself. He's becoming a man. He's not Paul anymore.
Spoiler, by the end of the book, he literally becomes Emperor of the Universe.
Right, and I figured that. But and I get it. He's going on the hero's journey. But throughout it, I'm just sort of like, God, this guy should just be dead because there's no way he's surviving. Like when he starts tripping in the desert, that with the spice scene where they're trying to save the one spice vehicle. They're trying to airlift it. For some reason they think they have time to airlift it with the worm coming down, and he starts tripping balls in the desert. And I'm like, yeah, he's gone. He's dead there. Goodbye. The worm's got him. He's gone. I like because this guy is so frail and that's everybody's always saving him, which is hilarious to me.
To be honest with you, some of the action in that movie didn't hold up for me, and that part of that scene did it, which is where like they're like. So, it was cool when you see the worm
Hollywood. It was typical Hollywood.
It was a moment where he's sitting there and then Gurney comes and grabs him. And then just running back, they both trip.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's typical Hollywood bullshit.
Get up. And then the camera's shaking and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
And it happens again when him and his mother are running from the worm. And she's like, she's pregnant and booking it past him. And he's like, I'm like 15 feet behind on that. And it's like the movie moment. And then he's like staring at it. And it's like, he's staring at this giant asshole.
It was meant to look like an eye, but it definitely looked like a brown eye.
He's just staring at his asshole. I'm like, is he going to talk to it now? He's going to talk to the worm, right?
That's what you thought. He'd just start talking.
I didn't know. I'm like, what's that? He's like, you can talk to the worms now. I get it. Cool. Like, it's so funny, like being ignorant to the series and just expecting certain things. And like, he's not talking to the worm. I thought it was going to swallow him then. I don't understand. Like, what happened? There's other noises that distracted him. Yeah, there's a lot of like Hollywood moments in this, which I get it. It's, it's got a huge budget, needs to make money. It's trying to cater to a certain crowd.
I think that's a result, though, of, like you said, there's the sandworm attack. They throw in extra action moments, like while he's sleeping.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He's having a premonition that he's
you get to see him in his cool armor, and he's doing flips and shit. And he's got daggers, and it's like, and the mask comes down. It's very CG, and it's like, wow, he looks like a different skin color here.
Right. But like
he looks like
there's that's what I mean is that like under normal circumstances, if you were to tell the whole story, you would have at least 3 more action beats I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, isn't there a time jump in the book too? Is it 2 years or something? Is there a time jump in the?
It's a couple years, because the son, spoiler in the book, him and Chani have a son, Leto the second, as he names it after his dad.
Leto the second. Leto Jr.
And then the son ends up getting killed. And then his sister, who Rebecca is Rebecca Ferguson, is pregnant with. She's an abomination. She's called an abomination because and the problem, and later on, after the Baron dies at the end of this movie, at the end of this book, the Baron comes back because remember, the Baron, Jessica's daughter would be the Baron's granddaughter because Jessica's father is the Baron Conan. So what happens is because she's an abomination, a Bene Gesserit abomination, she has past lives in her that if she's not strong enough to prevent them, they come back out. And so the Baron's consciousness comes back through Alia, who is
more Star Wars stealing.
Yes.
More Star Wars stealing. It's just like, we don't have any ideas, we'll just steal from Dune.
Tons of it. And there's
that's it. Well, that's fascinating.
Hold on a second. There's clones in the future books.
See, yeah, I I gave George way too much
He
credit.
ripped
Honestly,
them
I really
off,
did.
man.
I did. I gave him way too much. Just like the voice, I was like, oh my god, they're just using the Force.
Right.
They're literally just telling, like George literally just stole. Yeah, it's literally it's the same concept.
Give me the water.
Yeah,
it's like give me the water. We're like give me the water. You're like, oh fuck, here's water.
George was like, how can I steal this without making it obvious?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Well, there'll be laser swords, so that'll help.
Right.
There's laser swords and there's computers, so that's where it'll differ.
That'll help. Yeah, little droids. Yeah, little droids.
And it'll be a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, so that way no one will know.
Right, because this one's in the future. long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
I honestly was really stunned to see like just how many things were sort of ripped off. I was like, oh wow. That changes my perception a bit. I don't know. Go see it in a theater if you're going to see it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
unless you have HBO Max for free, see it for free then I guess. But yeah, I'm ready for part 2, whenever that is. 2016 maybe. They said 23rd. They said 2020.
I think they said 2023.
Yeah, they said 2023. We know that's not happening. This movie got pushed back. You know how many times? This movie was announced in like 2018.
Yeah, but COVID.
And we just got it.
I'm sure did that. COVID did.
Also, didn't make any sense. This is what's hilarious to me about these streaming things. They literally put the movie on streaming the day before it dropped in theaters. How are you gonna make any money?
I don't know.
I mean, it's a miracle that it made money, but like, at least do what Disney does: charge people $30 to see it. Then you're gonna make a killing.
I mean,
think about how much money
they had waited a week,
they lost.
If they had waited a week, I would have gone to go see it in the theaters.
That's what I mean. And think about people that may have been on the fence were like, no, screw it now. I'll just watch it at home. I have the option.
Yeah, it is a lot easier.
Poor decision making.
We'll see. I don't know.
I'm gonna find a movie for you that you're gonna like. I gotta find a Dane movie to review.
I mean, Ghostbusters.
So that when you come on,
God, I hope Ghostbusters doesn't blow.
I just have a feeling we're gonna come into this.
No, but I have very valid reasons as to why the story of this movie is no good. Yeah, I know. So our heads pop.
No, I'm excited about that film because it does look like a favorable sequel in the right way. It looks like a return to form, so to speak, that can right some of the wrongs of the last thing that happened in the Ghostbusters. Talk about abominations.
That's right. Oh, that poor movie. So, all right. So I'm curious now that you kind of know a little bit about kind of how the story ends. What is it that you're interested to see in the next?
Well, here's the thing. I really want to see his journey, but now I'm like, I'm scared because I feel like we missed a lot of, story and character development, and I feel like we've already lost some characters. So I feel like Leto was a far more interesting character than we were given. I feel like we missed so much backstory with some of these characters that I'm like, we're not going to go back and see their stories. You know what I mean? Right. We can only go forward now with Paul and Jessica. And so I'm really interested to see his ascension because we know where he's going. Because all the cool stuff is teased. It's like the whole movie. You're like, you want to see this next part and you got to pay for it. You want to see the cool shit? You're going to pay for it. Yeah. You're going to wait 3 years, 4 years. You want to see him do cool shit. You want to see him do flips and shit. You're going to wait for it. Right. Yeah. And, I would love to see how they translate some of the, where he's, seeing the world and bridging the future and the past and everything. I want to see all that, how the hell they do that. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting stuff going on there. It's a lot to fit into a part 2, though. I feel like, I don't know what you've told me about this book. It just feels like there's still so much to explore. I'm just concerned that things are going to get chopped away. Yeah, and we're going to come away with another 2.5 hour. I hope it's not unsatisfying, but it's got to hit it out of the park. Because if not, part 1 is all for naught then, because people have already been saying, oh, they're telling like the most boring parts of the book in this movie. It's like the most boring parts of the book are this whole movie. And I don't know because I haven't read the book. So
the truth is the without the other interesting aspects of Dune.
Yeah.
Like, again, the things like
the Baron's a big part. The Baron, I feel like is a huge miss.
And that's why when you watch, I'm telling you,
you just want me to go back and watch.
Yes, watch it. Trust me. Next time we talk about it, you'll be like, oh, I see what you mean. Because the Baron was on screen for like 5 minutes in this movie. And if you watch the David Lynch version, steals the movie. Steals the movie.
Interesting.
Because and just the scheming is what you want to see. Because I remember the first time that you see the Baron in this movie, you see him and he's a fucking blob and he asks some questions.
He's naked in a steam room.
Right. And he asks him and he's like, why would you let the Emperor do this?
Dave Bautista just starts yelling.
Right. Because he's the beast.
Who also has literally no more than 3 minutes of screen time in this film.
I know. And he says, well, when is a gift not a gift? And then they cut it. It's like, no, give me some of that scheming because the scheming's good. You know what I mean? Like the interesting shit.
Yeah, you're right. It's very little breadcrumbing. Like, whereas Game of Thrones throughout most of its seasons did very good with the intrigue, the political intrigue and scheming. Yeah. Someone said, Denis, I'm guessing, somebody said, we don't want any of that. Just get more cool shots of the desert.
Right. We have more ornithopters to fly.
Yeah.
More footage of this. So someone can look at it and go, what is it? Is it a dragonfly?
More dragonflies, please.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Dune. You liked it.
Dane hated it.
I didn't. It was very disappointing.
Next time you like watch a movie, I want like just set up a webcam so I can see how pissed off you are. So you get, God damn it, damn it, and he's just throwing stuff. They messed it up.
Well,
he's just sitting there biting his nails off. They messed up Dune. They messed up my Dune.
Fucked up Dune. They did. They messed up my Dune.
They messed up my Dune. I remember the video game. Video game's better than this. The video game is better. It is. There's more interesting shit going on. I gotta see this game now.
It's great. It's got good music in it too, actually. Now that I think about it, the game has really good music.
I will go read the book though soon. So I will read the book so I can.
The book is good, man.
So I can.
I'm telling you.
Get more well educated on Dune.
Yeah, and it's not a difficult read. It's not like I remember trying to read like the first 10 pages of Game of Thrones, and I'm like, it's hard.
Nope.
Put this down. Look, Dane isn't a literature major anymore. He's done with that. I'm like,
Dane's a simple man these days.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not a listicle on crack.com, Dane doesn't read shit anymore. He just puts it down.
He likes cars and cameras.
Doesn't even like cars anymore. About cars. All right, so let's finish up here. So ends the
marathon of Dune.
The marathon of Dune.
I feel educated.
It's only half over.
I feel educated.
Right.
Very educated.
That's what I mean. As I said, Matt has to, in the beginning of this, he has to put a disclaimer. It just says, "Beware, nerd, nerd crossing."
Beware, nerd.
The guy from Revenge of the Nerds. Nerds!
Well, let's get those nerds! Nerds!
Hey, his channel is called Nerd Enthusiast, so we're right up that alley.
Very true. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Nerd Enthusiast Movie Podcast. One more time, make sure if you haven't already, check out patreon.com/nerdenthusiast. There's always new content for that. We are also on all of the social medias at Nerd Enthusiast. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I was going to say Yahoo. Does Yahoo even exist anymore?
MySpace.
Just my and then the underscore. That's what all the cool kids are calling it now. My and then underscore space. GeoCities. We're on GeoCities.
Angel Fire.
Oh shit.
Live journals. Now we're really dating ourselves.
I know. Early 2000s social medias. With the hamster dance. With the hamster dance thing everyone put in. Holy shit, we're old. All right. So yeah, that would be the end of that. Check out all the other shows as well. We have there's always wrestling. There's definitely some poker stuff. I know they just did a bunch of Halloween stuff besides our Halloween movie from last episode. So check that out. I'm Dane.
I'm Mike, and I can't wait for the next movie that you hate, Dane.
It's going to be them all. It's gonna be them all.
Dane's quest to hate every film.
Wait, that's not true though. I love
My never-ending quest to hate every film.
I love a lot of movies, but man, this wasn't it. This is not it. This is not the one. This is not the one we could find that I love.
This is not the Dune you're looking for.
This is not the Dune we're looking for. We need a voice effect for that.
I'm a weasel.
All right. See you guys later.